working on the 1968 Bullet Charger and start showing you some of our processes that we like to do here at the shop. We call it bag and tag, and it's where under disassembly, when we take the whole thing apart, we bag everything and tag everything with the most description possible, like just as simple as taking off these headlight rings to go to the behind the retractable headlights. They take 5 screws a piece. One side had 5, one side had 4, so we're missing a screw. So when we make our bag for that, we're just going to make a note: missing screw, missing one of these. That way when we go to dig it out, we don't go, well, it only had 1 screw. We know that we only need to replace 1 or replace all 10 just to match. But and that's up to you if you feel like your project needs 10 that match and 1 that's off, or you're able to find another used one that matches perfectly. But we start off with what it is. 1968 Dodge Charger. When things are labeled nicely, it makes our job easier. It saves the customer money. So whatever time we are spending now labeling it makes the other side of the reassembling it go faster and a more enjoyable process for anybody putting the car back together. So like 69 Dodge Charger, this is the L brackets from grill frame to fender. And there's 2 of them, and 2 brackets, 4 bolts. And then they'll all go in the big bag. And then under the disassembly process of taking this apart, we can even look to see how the car was made. If you look at this, our Bullet Charger was originally a red car. You can see steel right there, where that was a steel bracket bolted to the inner fender, the inside part of the exterior fender. And the backside of it it was just bare steel bolted to the fender, and then the car got painted red. And so there's, on the first bag of bolts that I showed that was labeled, there's some red bolts in there. This car's going back shiny black, so all this stuff would go back shiny black. But if you were restoring it to back to a red car, you would make a note that bracket paints body color and it doesn't go black. And the bolts would paint body color and they wouldn't go black. So you'd know the bottom 2 bolts are body color and the top 2 bolts are the shiny black that holds it in the frame. So that's something I learned today. I've been working on Chargers since I was 10, so 33 years. I've been working on these things, and you still find little things that you didn't know the last time around. And these brackets right here, I'll tell you what, we're going to show you another part of the process here while we're doing this. When you get 2 parts that are identical like this, I'm not going to separate them in their own individual bag. It's the same part. We can go fender to grill frame bracket, and we can put both of them in the one bag. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stamp this with a right side, with an R for right side, and I'm going to stamp the other one with the left side. So when they go back together, we know that this one came off the right and that one came off the left. They're a mirrored bracket, which means it doesn't matter. But say the car had a little fender bender, say one bracket's a little bent compared to the other one, and you wanted to make sure they went back on the side they came off of, because that's the way the car went back together. Now, under a proper restoration, you should hammer and dolly and straighten all this stuff out to where they are the same and it is straight, especially on this car. It's a really nice build. We don't want one to be bent. I'm not saying one is bent, I'm just saying that you make a note This one came off the left, this one came off the right, just in case you run into something like that. We find the same thing here. It was bolted to the fender and then painted. And we're gonna put that through the blaster, and we'll hang them and paint them separately. But that shows us that it was painted red with the fender, and the bolts were shiny black that hold it to the grill frame. And the grill frame was supposed to be a, I'm not saying shiny, but it was shinier. It wasn't flat. It was a shiny black. Shiny for enamel anyway. So the bolts are the same. We're gonna take both these brackets over there, and I'm gonna show you how we stamp them. It's really simple. So we mark these with a right hand and a left hand. A lot of the community doesn't, they get left and right mixed up. It's as you're sitting in the driver's seat, facing the dashboard, which is the left side, which is the right side. And so this came off the left side of the car. That right there gets covered up, gets bolted by the fender so you won't see it. So I'm gonna take that right there and I'm gonna mark that with the left, with an L for left. And I'm gonna take the R for this one. That doesn't line up. And that way you don't see the stamping mark on it when it's bolted to the car. Nobody's gonna be the wiser in that yet. You can see that they're the same part. They're a mirror image perfect of each other. But in case, just in case they were different, you would have them marked. It's always good practice to give more information than not enough. Good, instead of just showing the mundane process of taking this apart to go to the blaster, we're trying to teach our viewer how we do it so it's easy for them to replicate at home. Not everybody needs as much detail as we're putting in this, but one guy working by himself, we think, oh, we're gonna get to that next week, but sometimes next week turns into a few years down the road, and then you go back and you got the one bag of parts. Well, here it all is, but then you spend a Saturday looking at past pictures on YouTube and past pictures in your build file of seeing where this stuff went. And if you label everything properly, it makes it really easy to go back together. And most people, they use an electric drill these days, an impact driver or something. And well, I got more to say. You're gonna listen to it. You recording that? Okay. Earlier in the video, I talked about using the like 1/4 inch impact stuff, electric impact, like 18 volt Milwaukee impact. That's fine. We really like using the 1/4 inch drive stuff and not to use the 3/8 or bigger, because some of these bolts are one-off, and we can replicate them by taking a standard bolt and modifying it on our lathe to make it work. But we would rather break the tool and get another ratchet, get another socket, than we would break the one-off bolt. On this thing, cars, South Texas car doesn't have a really big problem with rust, but you get, cars up anywhere north of Kansas City and bolts don't come out the way they're supposed to. It can be a real mess and a real fight to take a really rusty car apart. And they say every 15-minute job's 3 hours away from being done because of one bolt. And sometimes that one bolt gets you. wood, latch, mech, on grill frame. I think we're going to put the lever in the same bag too. So there while I pull that apart. Doing stuff with hand tools instead of electric impact also makes it easy to, I don't say easy. Makes it easier to video. Not making all that noise. Not making all that noise for the camera. And the other thing too, it might take a little bit longer, but you're also storing up the memory. You remember taking it apart with a hand tool, you might make a note that the longer bolt went in a certain hole, because sometimes there is a longer bolt. So taking it apart with regular hand tools allows you to think about some of the stuff as it comes apart. Just like the L fender brackets earlier in the video, we learned something today. 30 years in, still learning stuff every day. So mechanism, grill, and pull. 2 bolts, 2 screws, 1 pull, 1 headlight mechanism. Mopar, these hood hinge springs are about all the same. Some people bend that tab up with a screwdriver or a punch or a chisel and then bend it back. I like just grabbing it and twisting it out of there, and doesn't crack the paint. And we don't care about it right now. It hasn't gone to the blaster yet. It's getting powder coated, but we'll care about it. We'll care about scuffing paint when it goes back together, so we don't want to bend or pry or chip. We could lay a couple of pieces of tape right there and just grab it and spin it right back in without hurting anything. So we've just about got this grill frame stripped. We've got the headlight buckets left, or the headlight bucket left to do, and it'll be ready to go to the blaster powder coater. And one other. I'm just gonna mark these here. Left hand side, low beam. Left hand side, high beam. Right hand side, high beam. Right hand side, low beam. When we do that, we're going to replace the headlights, brand new, but the buckets and all that, we'll take those and we'll blast them and either send them off to have them plated or paint them when we get to going back together with it. So, and we won't bag the headlights, but we'll put the bag in a box together with all the stuff in it to where when we get it back from fresh powder coating, be able to undo one bag at a time, restore the parts in that bag, and then put it on the grill. It's kind of assembly by numbers that way, if you want to think about how it could go back together. I'm gonna try something new today when I take this apart. I'm gonna go get a different tool.